bbclearningenglish.com presents Talk About English, a series of radio features that support your English language studies.
Hello and welcome to the last in our series about culture and intercultural communication. Who on earth are we? Over the course of this series we've heard about some of the ways that we can explore cultural differences. We've come closer to understanding the nature of culture and found ways that can help us communicate better with people from different cultural backgrounds. But have we come any closer to understanding what our own cultures are like? Do we know who on earth we are? We'll try to answer that question at the end of the programme. Before that, though, let's look back at some of the main points covered during the series and then consider how we can make practical use of this knowledge. We heard that the nature of the culture we grow up in is invisible to us. We don't look at our own culture because, for us, it's normal. We looked at language and how languages are different, not just in the way they sound or the words they use, but because different languages represent both the different ways people experience the world and influence the way people of a culture think and behave. We considered the differences between verbal cultures, where people value talk and verbal reasoning, and non-verbal cultures, where silence is considered a positive thing because it can help to maintain social harmony. Then we heard about the different ways people from different cultures use body language, touch and gesture, and how this can affect and be affected by different cultural attitudes to time and space. One of the most important ideas we covered was the distinction between cultures where the individual is seen as central and those where the group is seen as the most important unit. We looked at cultural dimensions, at how we can begin to see what a culture is like by considering things such as a culture's attitude to power, whether a culture tries to avoid uncertainty, or to what extent a culture values masculine or feminine characteristics. And in recent programmes we looked at some of the barriers to successful communication between people from different cultures and the problem of culture shock. But what are the practical implications of all this? What use can we make of this information? Over to series writer and presenter Mark Beebe.
Well, we need to turn these theories into action when we meet and talk to people from other cultures, for example, or, more particularly, when we go to live in a foreign country. And how do we do that? Sit back and listen as people from around the world help Rebecca Fong, a teacher of intercultural communication from the University of the West of England, present a guide to turning theories about culture into successful and beneficial intercultural practice.
First and foremost, the biggest barrier to adjusting to a new culture could well be assuming that it'll be easy and that you'll be okay. If it is, obviously that's fantastic. If it isn't, which it's much more likely to be, then don't panic. This is normal. You're normal. Focus on the idea of cultural relativism. No one culture is right. We shouldn't use our own standards to judge other cultures with. Begin the process of asking questions about how and why different cultures do things differently.
We all believe that our culture is the right way of doing it because we've always been told this is right, this is how you behave, this is what you must say, this is what you must do. When you move to another culture, often you have to realise that what you have learned is not intrinsically right, it's just one way.
Prepare. Arm yourself with the facts before you go. Find out about the geography and the history, the food, the customs. Learn the language. This will give you control in your new culture. It'll also give you an opportunity to meet people and socialise, and a window on the way the culture works as you come to understand how the language is used. When you get there, try and make friends as soon as you can. A good way of making real friends in a culture is by joining local cookery courses or music or drama courses or sports clubs, whatever your local neighbourhood has to offer.
Having traveled all over the world and met people from different cultures, I feel it made me quite a rich person. When I go home, I know how to treat other people from other cultures and to inform my people how to respect people with their cultures, because sometimes you find them rude, but it's not that they are rude, it's how they take it in their country. But it really educated me quite a lot, and I'm really happy about that.
Work on yourself. This is probably the most important thing of all. Raise your self-awareness and remember that culture is not only about what we believe, but much harder to get control of, it's about the way that we behave. So be observant, watch what's going on around you and notice behavioural differences. Listen to yourself. Even when you get frustrated, try not to lose your temper. Be restrained, reserve judgment. Wait until you've really made an effort to find out the reason for your frustrations.
bbclearningenglish.com.
When making cultural change, it isn't necessarily that you have to adapt and become part of that culture, but the one thing you owe it to any other culture is to be aware. Just be aware that in France, things are done differently. Just be aware that when you go to Japan, things are done differently. And don't stand there and say, oh, this isn't the way we do it, and how strange or how peculiar. You've got to sort of recognize that different cultures do things differently.
Be sensitive. When situations are difficult, consider that it may in fact be you that is doing something wrong. Be introspective. Learn to ask yourself questions, especially if you can't understand why it is that things are happening differently around you. Be open and tolerant. Try not to dismiss things you don't know about. Criticising or rejecting the culture's favourite food or their favourite pastime or their favourite sport might turn out to be offensive. Don't be judgmental. Try to put yourself in the shoes of the other culture and imagine why their world is as it is. Be sociable and extrovert. Nobody knows you in this culture. You don't have your old reputation to live up to. So even if you're a shy person back home, adopt a new identity. Be the person that you've always secretly wanted to be. Be wary of stereotypes. Remember, you can be so busy looking for stereotypes that you blind yourself to all the other characteristics that are also there.
Just like probably English people saw people from Pakistan or Bangladesh or India as being one homogeneous group, I also used to see English people as one homogeneous group. So that was the first breakdown of my stereotype of English people. That English people are a variety of people from a variety of classes, from a variety of backgrounds, a variety of regions. In a way, what I am saying is that that's the way one should look at almost every country and every nation, every culture. Because there's no such thing as a monolithic person, or a culture.
Situations to avoid. A common reaction to difference is to seek what you know in the company of other expatriates in the place where you go. This can end up really slowing down your learning process, and worse, it can turn into super ethnocentric moaning situations where everyone sits about idealising the home country and downgrades the benefits of the host culture. Along the same lines, if all you're going to do when you go abroad is to try to replicate your home country as closely as you can by eating the same food and dressing the same and kitting your house out the same and doing the same activities, then why did you bother to go at all?
I'm quite fortunate. I'm quite lucky one because I now have a comparison of Eastern culture and Western culture. So I could possibly understand why people are behaving like that better than the people who never left the country. But sometimes I feel like I don't really belong to anywhere. In a way, it makes me free, much more free.
As soon as you make the decision to change your external behaviour and your habits a little bit to match the culture you're in, you'll be simply amazed by how much doors open for you, how people will admire the way you're making an effort to fit in, and how they respond to this by taking you into their inner circles and confiding in you.
I think what I've learned from being abroad is just to be more open-minded. I know that sounds like a cliche, but you meet so many different kinds of people and doing different things and behaving in different ways that you think to yourself, it works that way as well. You know, it doesn't just work my way, and you become a lot more tolerant.
Above all, try to maintain a sense of humour. Through thick and thin, see the positive side. Nothing is ever all bad or all difficult. If you make a real effort to acculturate in the time that you have, then living in a foreign culture will doubtless remain with you as one of the best experiences that you will ever have in your life.
Rebecca Fong with a practical guide to successful intercultural communication. You also heard from Ailey Hamilton and Devon Crone from Britain, Emma Kambangula from Namibia, James Keegan in the USA, Mahmoud Jamal from Pakistan, and Kyung-Ja Yu from Japan. My thanks to them and to all the people from around the world who've taken part in this series. I know they've helped me become a better interculturalist. But my special thanks goes to our cultural guide, Rebecca Fong, and I'll leave the final word in the series to her.
Learning about other people's cultures is one of the most fantastically rewarding things that any of us will ever do. And in asking ourselves questions about how other cultures operate, we'll inevitably have to compare and contrast them with our own cultures. So that an unexpected byproduct of studying other cultures will be learning more about the way that our own cultures operate. Which brings us nearer to being able to answer the question, who on earth are we?
That was Talk About English from BBC Learning English.